Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our latest episode of the Growth Playbook with myself, Kim Clark, and my dad, Alan Bolio. Today, we're going to dive into the most recent job numbers. So, you were saying to me before we started recording, Dad, that at surface level, they tell a certain story. But then when you lift the hood and you start looking underneath, you start to see there's a divergence between some good things and some bad things. So, looking forward to you bringing those to the surface for us.
Thanks. Yeah, you know, you hit the nail on the head. The April job number was exciting. It was above estimate by some. It's not a gigantic measure, but a good measure. 115,000 new jobs in the United States in the month of April. It was in the non-farm is the measure of employment here because there's different measures, private sector, civilian, et cetera. This is non-farm, which includes government and such. We grew by 115,000. Source for that is the Bureau of Labor Statistics and any number of news sources. Uh, that's that's if you just read that as you go, the economy's doing well. That is proof the economy's doing well. And it's like, let's go out and celebrate and have a good time. Uh, but you'd be making a big mistake because of that 115,000 jobs, nearly half of it came from one sector, healthcare and social assistance. 54,000 jobs came from that alone. So it's like if you're in that field, competition for labor is tough and you have a lot of need, so there's a lot of hiring going on. And if you're looking for your next career step because you're in a segment of the economy that is not to your liking, maybe you're tired of retail or you're tired of working in a hotel, it tells you where you can go and likely where there's going to be demand for a while to come. That's not easy to replace. The LNA, the MA, and the nursing and stuff is hard to replace with AI. So it's a good field to get into. Leisure and hospitality and others did okay. There's no problem there. Construction grew mostly on single family housing and such. So there were some pockets, but the big one, of course, is social assistance and healthcare. So with that strong number, let's go a little deeper. It means that the Federal Reserve Board is not likely to cut rates, like we talked about last week, and we're going to perhaps see a little tightening in monetary policy. Maybe we'll see. Um, and this strong job number occurred despite the CPI we talked about last week, energy prices, and AI. So if you stop at 115,000, you go, well, AI, it's not that big a problem, and the energy price is not that big a problem. Uh, until you stop and think, here's how I would frame it. In the last year, from April 25 to April 26, we created 250,000 jobs in this country in a year. In healthcare alone, we created 657,000. So that means other segments, there was a large amount of job losses that went on over last year. For instance, if you were in private educational services, 38,000 jobs were lost in the last year. Transportation and warehousing, 71,000 jobs were lost. So your career opportunities are diminishing. Financial activities, information, I mean, that's the growing order of magnitude all along the way, and government jobs the most. So as you look at all this, nine segments shrank, and that those nine segments counted for 55% of jobs. So it really is not as powerful or as encouraging as it might seem on the surface. It's very focused. And it's that focus that is deceptive and people have to be careful about. While it may provide job opportunities, it also can give you a false sense of things are going well. Um, Now, along with that, and because you know me, there's always layers upon layers. Some of the things that came out is that the workforce in the United States is actually shrinking. As people looking for work and people who are working, that declined by 92,000 in April. So that's just people who are either aging out and no longer wanting to participate, so they no longer counted, or it's because there's shrinkage in industries. And so 92,000 people decided, I'm not going to bother anymore. I'm just not going to. That's less people to hire, which makes it harder for employers. The labor participation rate is at 61.8%, which is the lowest since October 21. And that's not just seniors, it's all age groups. There's not that drive to be part of the workforce. There's a disenchantment of some kind going on, or there are some barriers going on, but there's more people who are just saying, yeah, it's not a crash, it's not horrible, but it's And that means that your clients, Kim, as they go to hire, it can seem like, hey, the economy's good, and there aren't as many people working in manufacturing. Manufacturing labor is down. If you have clients that are in manufacturing, there should be lots of people to hire. But the participation rate going down means there's less people who really want to do that again. And there's less people who are excited about going to work. Um, and it puts pressure then on labor costs despite the loss of jobs. It's the strangest thing. But when you have less people who want to work, less people looking for work, you have to entice them in with pay, with the positive things of a job, even though you think they should be grateful. They're going to give you an attitude, let's just call it that, or a friendly wave. If you don't entice them in with wages and everything positive, because they just don't care. It's a strange thing. The number is so fantastic, and yet underneath the surface, we find that people are just shrugging and going, I give up.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of, because of probably a lot of the factors that we talk about too. I mean, they're tired, emotionally, stress. Stress can be a demotivator. If leadership is anxious and uncertain and confused, that's going to trickle down throughout the workforce as well. So I think that goes back to, or something that pops in my head anyways, is an episode you and I did last summer on applied optimism in the workplace. And that might be a good episode for folks to revisit to in this type of condition and environment.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's a great point. And another overarching lesson here is for everyone that listens is never take the headline number, whether it's good or bad, and go, hey, that's good for the economy, because you'll get misled so often by somebody saying that the exports are up. The job numbers mean the economy's doing well. No, it means in most cases, a segment of the economy is doing well. You really need to do your due diligence to know what's going on and to adjust yourself accordingly. Otherwise, you're just going to be making decisions that are not appropriate, right, for what's happening. I think the reality of the job market is that it's going to remain I don't want to say problem. That makes it sound too negative. A challenge. I guess that would be the more appropriate word for a lot of employers as they go forward. You may get in 100 resumes for three jobs, which this is a real example. Over 100 resumes came in, and at the end of the day, nine were called in for interviews, and of those, three just didn't even make that cut. It's just a lot of people may send in an empty resume, but if you're looking for a certain type of person, it's still a lot of work, and the competition for those qualified people is still stiff, despite what we may think. Uh, don't believe the number at the top. Do your homework and understand that your most important resource is still going to be requiring a lot of your attention.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So, Kathleen over at Talent Trust and KQV, she just did a pipeline strategy workshop that's available on her website still for purchase. So that would be a great thing to look into further and maybe give Kathleen a call. We can put that in the show notes, just a link over to her website, so that way it's easy to get to. So that way you can be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. That's it certainly is a very good approach. Um, and remember to treat your people well once they're gone through the pipeline and they're onboarded. we've talked about this and we've seen enough of it that uh, you have to appreciate them every day and share information and make it a team if you're going to really succeed. And you actually find your efficiencies go up in profitability, but along the way, you're just doing what's best for the company while you're doing what's best for the people working for you.
Agreed. I love it. I think that's a great place to end. I think I like how we do the drill down on these data points. So like you said, if you're not sure, from the headlines, feel free to share the podcast with other folks so that way we can help spread the news of what's going on in the undertow.
Right. Absolutely. Um, I want to share this really quickly to probably disrupt your summary. Uh, it was Bloomberg, which is not a bad thing. I'm not. This is in no way disses them, but their top thing was the 117,000 jobs in the U.S. two strongest months in X number of years, and then there was two other opposite things. Two things opposite below that was the stock market was at a record high, consumer sentiment was at a record low. And I went, well, that shows the decay economy really well. And then right below that, it had Canada lost 132,000 jobs, the most since how many years, in a 4-month period. And I thought, well, we had good news, we had bad news. I know where the Canadian jobs went, and it's just,
Chaos.
but when you stand back and look at it that way, you get, I should feel good, I should feel bad, I should feel good. It's so bad for them. I mean, you're all over the map with all the different news going on. It's just mind-boggling, which drives that you got to know what's important for you and
Yep.
stick to the ones that are important for you. And I like reading all this stuff and I get off on it, but if that's not your thing, just find the four things you need to keep your eye and ears and eyes open for whatever, and stick with that. You'll save yourself a lot of grief.
No, I like it. I think that's a perfect way to summarize. So thank you everyone for joining us today on this episode of the Growth Playbook. And as always, if you have questions or want to chat with my dad or I, feel free to put some comments in there and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Sure
Dad, thank
will.
you for bringing this to the show.
You bet. And maybe soon we'll talk about some more threats to world life as we know it. Gets to be fun when I get to be real negative.
I'm sure there's plenty for us to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a few.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's good. All right, have a good day.
Thank you. You too. See you next week.